Our film begins with a man named Arthur Flick. He's in front of a mirror doing his makeup because he works as a clown. Arthur suffers from a psychological disorder that causes him to laugh uncontrollably. We see him putting 2 fingers in his mouth, trying to force a smile onto his face. But a tear falls from his eye because he did this painfully, and it's clear he's not happy in his life. Afterwards, Arthur goes out into the alley because he works for a company that sends clowns to do promotional work in the streets. Arthur was waving an advertising sign in the middle of the city streets, and it's clear that this city is neglected and drowning in poverty and crime. Suddenly, a group of young kids attack Arthur, take the advertising board from his hand, and run away. Arthur runs after them to follow them, and when he catches up to them in a narrow, empty alley, those kids gang up on him, smash the advertising sign over his head, and start beating him. Poor Arthur, lying on the ground, is left thrown aside, and they leave. Poor Arthur was physically and psychologically humiliated, and it's clear he can't even defend himself. After this beating in the street, Arthur boards the bus to return home. Here, we see he is suffering and can't communicate with the people around him. While sitting on the bus, feeling anxious, he tries to laugh with a small child sitting in front of him. Arthur starts doing clown tricks to make him laugh, and indeed the little child starts laughing. But the child's mother misunderstands Arthur's intentions and says, "Stay away from my son." Arthur tries to explain his purpose, but suddenly the psychological condition he suffers from hits him, and he starts laughing uncontrollably. The woman doesn't like this situation and sees him as some kind of idiot. Arthur takes out a card from his pocket, written on it that he suffers from a disorder that causes him to laugh uncontrollably. That woman read the card, but didn't care. Here, Arthur starts to feel that he is not accepted in society. And even ordinary people who interact with him see him as a strange creature. After this, Arthur returns to his home, which is a small old apartment in a very old building where he lives with his sick mother, Penny, who needs his care. Arthur is the one who takes care of her and always stays by her side to help her in her daily life. Arthur seems to kiss her a lot, and their relationship appears strong. But at the same time, this relationship increases the pressure on him because he is responsible for everything. In any case, during the entire day, she watches the program of a host named Murray. This host, Murray Franklin, is very famous in their city. Penny considers Murray her hero and says that he is the one who brings happiness and joy to society. Arthur also watches the program with her, and here he starts to imagine himself in this world that is somewhat distant from his real life. Penny tells him that she always sends messages to Thomas Wayne, the big businessman, because she believes Thomas can help them and return their good life to them, as Mother Penny used to work for him when she was young. In another scene, we see Arthur imagining himself participating in Murray Franklin's show. He imagines himself sitting in the middle of the audience watching the host Murray, whom Arthur and his mother only see on TV live. In this imagination, Murray sees Arthur in the audience and calls him to come up to the stage. Arthur was very affected by this moment. He goes to him to take his chance and speak in front of the audience. Arthur talks to them about his difficult life and the suffering he goes through every day. He speaks in a very affecting way, and the audience is drawn to listen to him. He tells them that people always look down on him and don't care about him, and that his dream is to be a famous comedian, but he still doesn't know how to achieve his goal. There, host Murray is affected by Arthur's speech and stands in front of the audience, defending him in a touching moment. The entire audience starts applauding enthusiastically and sympathizing with Arthur, but all of this was only in Arthur's imagination, which shows us how he lives in a world of delusions and wishes to be loved, and accepted by society. The next day, Arthur goes to his psychiatrist. He sits in front of her and starts talking about how difficult his life is and how he is exposed to neglect and marginalization. He adds, "Even you aren't listening to me. We feel that even the doctor, who is supposed to help him, isn't giving attention to his condition." There, the doctor tells him that the city's financial situation has become weak, and they have decided to close the social and psychological centers, meaning Arthur will no longer have psychological follow-ups or medication next period. This only adds to his burden. Arthur returns to his job as a clown. During work, his friend named Randall finds out about what happened to him with those kids who beat him. He gives Arthur a gun and says, "Take this. It will protect you if someone messes with you." Arthur is surprised by this weapon, but takes it with him. Later, this gun will become very important in the rest of the story. Afterwards, Arthur, wearing his clown costume, is doing his show in a children's hospital. He tries to make them laugh and lift their spirits with the acrobatic moves he does. And indeed, the children and doctors interact with him. But in the middle of the show, the gun he was hiding falls from his pocket. The children and doctors see this and are shocked. Arthur tries to put the gun back in his pocket and acts as if it was part of the show. Even so, the situation was very embarrassing. After this incident, the hospital informs the company Arthur works for. His boss gets angry and yells at him, especially since this happened in front of young children. Because of this problem, the manager decides to fire Arthur from his job. This dismissal will greatly affect Arthur's psychological state because this job was what supported him and his mother. At night, Arthur rides the metro, very sad. He sits alone, lost, not knowing what he will do with his life now. In the middle of the metro, there are 3 men who look well off. They are sitting in front of him and are harassing a woman sitting near them. The woman seems anxious and afraid of them. When Arthur sees her, he just watches without intervening or making a move. At this moment, Arthur starts laughing uncontrollably due to the illness he has. Those men think Arthur is laughing at them, so they start mocking him and move towards him. They start beating him, and he's on the ground. Arthur can no longer control himself. He pulls out the gun his friend Randall gave him and shoots 2 of them, killing them on the spot. The third one gets scared and tries to run from the metro, but Arthur follows him to the stairs and kills him too. This moment was a major turning point in Arthur's life, because for the first time he feels strong and not weak. But at the same time, he is shocked and can't comprehend the crime he committed. Afterwards, Arthur escapes into the darkness of the city, running through the dark streets. Fear and shock are visible on his face. In any case, he goes to a public bathroom and starts looking at himself in the mirror. At this moment, Arthur lets out a hysterical laugh, as if he has discovered something new within himself. He starts dancing a dance that expresses his liberation from weakness and fear of society. We return to Arthur, who lives in an old building. He really likes his neighbor Sophie. At first, he only saw her from afar, but after the events that happened, their relationship begins to develop. One time, Arthur goes to her apartment. He talks to her about his feelings and how he was neglected. Sophie seems sympathetic to him. After that, they meet many times and even go to the cinema together. Finally, Arthur finds the love and attention he has been searching for in this relationship, and he starts to feel a bit of hope return to his life. During this time, he still had a dream in his head, so he decided to pursue his dream and become a comedy artist. He makes the decision to do a comedy show in a small theater. In any case, Arthur gets there and goes up on stage in front of an audience who came to laugh and enjoy his jokes. But as soon as the show starts, Arthur's laughing condition hits him and he can't control it. The audience looks at him in bewilderment and doesn't understand why he's laughing. They start to mock him because they don't find him funny. On the contrary, he seems like a fool to them. They start interrupting him every time he tells a new joke. This makes his show a failure. So, Arthur's dream of becoming a comedy artist evaporates. After this failed attempt, Arthur returns home and finds a letter his mother was trying to send to businessman Thomas Wayne. In this letter, it says that Thomas is Arthur's real father and that he abandoned her and their son. This discovery will be a huge shock for Arthur, and he starts to doubt everything, especially his mother, whom he always depended on and considered the only person he had in his life. After reading the letter, Arthur decides to go confront Thomas Wayne himself. He goes to a cinema where he knows Thomas is attending a gala. Arthur manages to sneak in, disguised as one of the workers there. In the middle of the crowd, he sees Thomas going to the bathroom and follows him. There, he confronts and talks to him, telling him, "You are my real father," and that his mother Penny always told him this. Thomas refuses to admit that Arthur is his son and tells him, "Your mother was mentally ill and lived in delusions." He adds, "And you're not even her real son. She just adopted you." After this shocking news, Arthur decides to go to the hospital where his mother was treated when she was young. There, we see Arthur reading her medical files, and in them he discovers the truth. Penny was indeed mentally ill and was abused in her childhood due to the many failed relationships she had with men. He also discovers that he himself was tortured in his childhood and that his mother lived in delusions regarding her relationship with Thomas. This discovery causes a great psychological shock for Arthur. Arthur goes to his mother, who is now sick and asleep in the hospital. He comes to her side for a while, and his feelings are torn between love and hatred. In a very gloomy moment, Arthur smothers his mother with a pillow, killing her. This scene symbolizes Arthur's final break from his past and everything connected to the suffering he lived in his life, especially with his mother, who was the only person left in his life. Afterwards, Arthur feels a strange sense of freedom, as if he has broken the chains that were binding him, and he starts to see life differently. And here is where he transforms into the Joker character, who has no rules or laws to govern him. After his mother's death, Arthur gets an invitation to participate in the program of the host Murray Franklin, whom he always watched with his mother and saw as his hero. This invitation comes after a video of his failed comedy show is published, and he becomes famous, and people start talking about him. It seems Murray is calling him on the show just to make fun of him in front of his audience. In any case, we see Arthur at home preparing himself to appear in front of the audience. He starts contemplating himself and seeing the changes that have happened to him, and he draws a big smile in a cold way. He dyes his hair green and puts on his clown costume. It seems from his movements that he feels free from any restrictions. This moment represents his final transformation into the Joker character. Before Arthur goes to the program, his old work friends, Randall, who gave him the gun that time, and Gary, come to visit him at his apartment to see what happened to him after the manager fired him. At this moment, Arthur deals with Randall aggressively because he considers him the direct reason for what happened to him because of the gun that caused his transformation. Suddenly, Arthur pulls out a knife and kills Randall in a terrible way in front of Gary, but he lets Gary leave because he was always nice to him. Afterwards, Arthur goes to Murray's program. On his way, he starts doing his famous dance on the stairs, and it seems he is free from the psychological and social restrictions he had before, and he truly lives the way he wants to. Here, the police see him and follow him to arrest him, but Arthur manages to escape from them in the middle of the city, which is filled with protesters wearing Joker masks. Arthur takes advantage of the chaos in the streets and escapes. The police follow him, but don't catch him. Arthur arrives at the program's studio and sits in the green room. He starts watching TV before it's time for him to go out in front of the audience. Arthur sees Murray in the studio interacting with his audience and laughing with them. At this moment, Arthur is eager to go out in front of the world and confront people with the Joker persona. It seems he no longer has any desire to please society. On the contrary, he wants to impose himself on them. He asks the workers there to introduce him by the name Joker instead of Arthur. Indeed, when they come to introduce him, Arthur comes out in front of the audience wearing the clown costume, with makeup and his hair dyed green. When he enters the stage, he starts making strange movements in front of the audience. At first, Murray talks to him in a mocking way, trying to make the audience laugh at him. But Arthur decides to speak to him seriously and shocks everyone when he tells them that he's the one who killed those 3 men in the metro. The entire audience is shocked and doesn't understand what is happening in the program. Even Murray asks if it's a joke, but Arthur says he really did it. Murray starts getting angry and asks him, "Why did you kill them?" Arthur answers him, "Because society always neglected and looked down on me. And I no longer have any way to live in this world that doesn't care about people like me." Murray gets more angry and says, "You're just a criminal." But Arthur remains calm and doesn't care about Murray's talk. Suddenly, Arthur pulls out a gun he was hiding and shoots Murray in front of everyone, live on TV. Murray dies immediately. The people in the channel are all shocked and start running, afraid. But Arthur remains seated without fear, and it seems he has finally found a way to express his anger. Finally, he stands in front of the camera and says to them, "I wish you a good night," and leaves everything in the middle of the chaos he caused and escapes from there. The police manage to catch Arthur and put him in one of their cars. Arthur, sitting in it, starts looking at the city filled with chaos and people wearing Joker masks and following him. Arthur feels joy and starts laughing. Here, it seems he is enjoying what is happening. Some of those protesters gather around the police car and attack it. Afterwards, they get Arthur out of it. He stands in the middle of the protesters, who are celebrating him and treating him like their hero. At this same time, businessman Thomas Wayne, his wife, and his son Bruce are leaving the cinema after watching a film. One of the protesters, wearing a Joker mask, attacks them and kills Thomas and his wife in front of their young son Bruce's eyes. This scene is very important because the death of Bruce's parents will be the reason he becomes Batman in the future. In the next scene of the film, we see Arthur sitting in a mental hospital talking to his doctor. She asks him why he's laughing. He says to her, "I was thinking of a joke, but I'm sure you wouldn't understand it." In the following scene, we see Arthur leaving the hospital and walking down the corridor, but he leaves bloody footprints behind him. This means he killed the doctor and is escaping from the hospital. And here our film ends. This film of ours, Joker, still has a second part. If you want me to do it, say so in the comments. I hope you liked the summary, and don't forget to watch the past summaries and subscribe to watch the upcoming ones. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.